Thank you for joining us for our conversation on intersectionality. I'm going to introduce our panelists in just a moment here, but first, what is intersectionality? Let me tell you what it is according to dictionary.com, also called intersectionality theory, the theory that the overlap of various social identities such as race, gender, sexuality, and class contributes to the specific type of systemic oppression and discrimination experienced by an individual. So, let me introduce our panelists. We have panelists from so many different walks of life. We have Maria Alexander from the Center of Living and Learning. Woo! And when I introduce you, just raise your hand in case the audience doesn't know who you are. We have Tensha Chavez with the California Native Vote Project. James DeBacco, who is a reentry expert. Kent Mendoza with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, known as ARC, are our good friends and partners here at JCOD, and of course, Bamby Salcedo with the TransLatin Coalition. So I want to start, I just want to go down the line, and Tensha, I know you have to leave a little bit early, just to kind of tell us what intersectionality means to you and in your lived experience.
Hi, everybody. Good. I guess it's afternoon now, or almost afternoon. What intersectionality means to me as a Diné woman, I've experienced racism, in every aspect as you can think of. Growing up in two worlds, actually three worlds. I'm not only Navajo, I'm also Mexican, and living here, it's like I have different identities. So which one do I resonate with the most, right? So what that means to me is coming from different worlds, and which world do I fit in?
All right, and Kent, let's go to you. What does intersectionality mean to you?
Thank you for having me. My name is Kent, and for me, it means someone that was incarcerated when I was the age of 15 all the way till I was 20 in the immigration, juvenile, and all these systems. For me, what it means is just different things that contribute to your experience that eventually lead to you maybe experiencing inequality, oppression, violence. And for me, it's like, having gone through the education system in elementary where I came from a country where I didn't know the language, that was my first system that kind of affected me in a negative way. They didn't support me and led up to high school then. And then you add the components of not having a father, living in the hood, being around gangs, all those intersectionalities made up and shaped my pathway. And unfortunately, it was not a good one because it's failures of system after systems that eventually now I end up in the juvenile justice system, where the first system that I interacted was with education system. So those systems not doing things right led to me being incarcerated.
So different systems that you encountered as you were growing up. And as we grow up, we don't control where we're born or the neighborhood we grow up in. We go where our parents take us. And so you grow up in a neighborhood that may not be as advantaged as some other neighborhoods, and you're talking about the education system failing you. And you're not even being able to get the same opportunities in elementary school and middle school as some other people your age. And so this conversation on intersectionality starts at a very young age with things that we don't even have control over. So, Maria Alexander, I want to go to you. We like to call her Alex. I believe you would like to be called Alex, right?
I go by
Alex.
Alex.
So
Either
let's,
one is
Alex,
good, though.
let's go to you.
Thank you. And so to your point of what you just said, I did not grow up wealthy, but I did have access to resources and education. And yet, 34 years ago, I was living on the side of the freeway. And I actually went into labor on the side of the freeway. So what societal issues for me that include this in intersectionality is one, gender, woman, parental status. And I think sometimes we experience more stigma as mothers as opposed to fathers. But parental status is a challenge for reentry. Problematic drug use and substance use disorder, the impact on our families with mental health, and involvement with DCFS, children's services, and experiencing houselessness. Those all intersect to create barriers to systems and services and just life in general that lead to incarceration and a continued cycle of all of those.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I can't imagine giving birth on the side of the freeway. I mean, even in hospitals, there's always a risk to women giving birth, and you're giving birth in a very dangerous situation. So thank you for sharing that with us. Bamby, I want to get your take on what intersectionality means to you.
Buenos días, gracias a Dios por un día más de vida, gracias a la tierra en la cual estamos hoy en día y gracias a todos ustedes por estar aquí. For those of you who were not able to understand, I always acknowledge my creator, my higher power for giving me the opportunity to breathe one more day. I honor the land where we're standing on today, and I also honor your beautiful and amazing presence. I always say that I am a walking intersection. So I am a trans, Latina, mujer, emigrante, indocumentada, who has survived many horrific experiences, both on the streets and in jail and prison and immigration detention. And so all of those things intersect my life, and every space that I walk into, I cannot get rid of those, right? Because those are part of me, and I am, inevitably part of that. So that's who I am.
Thank you for sharing that. And James, let's go to you. What does intersectionality mean to you, and through your lived experience?
Well, through my lived experience, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. This is such an honor. I grew up system impacted from birth from the DCFS system, and by the time I was 13, I lived in 7 different homes, experienced all the abuses, that come with broken environments, and so I grew up system impacted, trauma impacted, and went into the Marine Corps and became military impacted. And that military impacted led to additional traumas. I was eventually kicked out of the Marine Corps, and then I became homeless. So then I became homeless impacted. Being on the streets for almost 2 years, I became criminally impacted. I spent approximately 30 years of my life behind bars, 28 of it straight. And, but the impaction continues. When you get out, there's no magic book on how to reintegrate back into society. And so being justice impacted, justice veteran impacted, criminally impacted, how do you figure that out? Where do you go when you don't have a family? Family turns their back on you. Your adoptive family doesn't want you because you're impacted. So I think the intersectionality of life, it can't just be defined by one defining moment. That intersection has to be included with diversity, equity, and inclusion for it to really mean something.
And so we have people from all walks of life here all talking about how intersectionality has affected them. And I believe the one thing we all have in common, not myself, but the panelists up here, is that you have lived experience. You're justice impacted, correct? And so let's talk about it from a justice impacted perspective. How do the way the laws work, how does the way society is kind of contribute to the experiences you've had or alleviate the experiences you've had as a justice impacted person? Do you have the resources you need? Are there resources that you can think of that are lacking? Let's start with you, Tensha.
So when I first answered the question, I was like, trying to think of, so I skimmed through it, and listening to the whole panel, it awakened something inside of me. It awakened up the historical trauma that had been happening to my people from, generations on. Like, we're right now in the 7th generation, and I feel like we're still fighting these systems, my community, right? From, the land back movement to the water right issues to all these things, and those are all justice impact issues for my community, right? And so, growing up in the system, growing up with, substance abuse issues, and thinking back to all the trauma that I endured as a child, growing up to where I'm at today, like she said, I'm a walking intersectionality, right? I'll celebrate 7 years clean next week, and I'm super
Congratulations.
grateful. Thank you. That's when it was like something awakened inside of me, right? Like my ancestors have come through, and I always say like I'm one of the answered prayers of my ancestors, right? And we walk this road, and with all the injustices that happen, it just awakens and wants me to help more of my community members get involved, right? Get involved and try to make these changes, try to run for government, try to create policies that are going to help the community, but not only the Native community, but all communities, right? We all face different types of injustices. I face an injustice that I feel like I used to blame myself for being out there using dope and being out there, committing crimes, but that was just a way for me to survive at that time, and I don't have to live that way. What I can do now is just move forward and help my community in every best way that I can.
So I want to follow up on you talking about your Native American heritage and how just the trauma of your ancestors kind of still lives with you. We're in a society where diversity, equity, and inclusion is controversial somehow, where somehow people think that including everybody is some kind of controversial idea. I don't see why that's even a conversation. But with all the diversity, equity, and inclusion things that took place, they started popping up a lot more with George Floyd's murder. And then now you see some in the country kind of pushing back on that and saying we don't want diversity. But through all that whole span, do you feel like there was ever a concerted effort to include the Native community in the larger conversation?
So I'm going to be totally honest.
That's why we're here.
It just started, like honestly. Even being a part of the JCOD, the CFCI, we just got invited in the second year. So we've been voicing that it's always felt like we've been an afterthought, right? It's felt like we've been an afterthought, but now I see a lot more invitations at the table. And, for me, like what that means, like, especially when we say land back, what that means is inviting us to these tables, right? We're the original stewards of this land. And, we never say like the land is ours. The land belongs to the Creator. And it's for everybody to be here diverse and to, make a really good life for yourself. That's something that I'm really strong on, but, absolutely. I appreciate the question. Inviting us to these tables to let us know like how we feel, what needs our community has, because to be honest with you, like we are the highest per capita rate because of our low population. We are the highest per capita rate in jails. We are the highest per capita rate homeless. We are the highest per capita rate in prisons and in jails and in taken away into the DCFS system. Like all of those things that the government has placed, we are the highest per capita because of our population. Like it's been like that for time immemorial.
Yeah, I think it's hard to have these conversations without acknowledging the trauma that the Native population went through from hundreds of years ago until to this day. It's still happening. So really appreciate you sharing that. But Ken, I wanna go to you. You talked about having difficulty growing up and the education system failing you. Other than a perfect education system where all neighborhoods have the same access to education and all kids have access to care and meals and all the things that are necessary to kind of grow up feeling secure, what do you think, what resources might have helped you in your experience to grow up with a better feeling of security and safety and feeling like you were not being failed by the systems that you're a part of?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I like the question because I think one of the things that we need to be working is we know that when kids go in elementary from the age of from first grade all the way to fifth, and then they go to I think sixth, right? They transfer to the next system of education. One thing that I realized that I feel could have benefit not only me but any young person in any classroom is that no kid should ever feel alone anytime, whatever that might mean. And I think that because we don't see those things, when kids are going through first grade to fifth grade, what I was going through is I had a mother who didn't know how to read or write English, didn't even know nothing about this country. So it was difficult for her to even support me in the education system when I go back home when I need to do homework, So I was dealing with that reality. But I just feel like there has to be some type of, beyond just a tutor, beyond just a mentor, some type of component where you have people that understand development, because in schools we don't prioritize youth development. The teachers are not youth development experts. They're not youth development. They don't know how to de-escalate behavior. They don't know none of that. So the school system rely on punishment and law enforcement, and you don't gotta blame them. That's just how it's been. When they created the school system, it was not written on youth development or the development of youth. It was just written on, I don't know what it was written on, But the point is that it was written on something that we see that it has failed. So I think that if we could look at that and make sure that we're prioritizing development, because then it's literally developing. Youth are growing, and as we're growing, our emotions are growing, our feelings are growing, everything's growing. And if we're in a classroom where there's 20 kids, where they're all experiencing those similar things, and not every kid has a mother, not every kid has a father, every kid is going to experience, their experience is going to be different. And some of them are going to be very isolated in their own brain and mind that you don't even know that's going on. So how do you unlock that? Because, next thing you know, these kids might be holding something so long for years, and now he's in 8th grade. Now he starts seeing it. That's what happened with me. It was like a ticking bomb. It was just adding up, feeling like an outcast, feeling like I couldn't do things. Feeling all these emotions, but nobody's addressing them. And here I am in 8th grade, and now I get expelled from school because now I'm revolting against other kids, and now I'm able to trouble youth. And now I'm in a whole different system where they didn't understand what was going on when I was 1st to 5th grade, but now they're receiving me when I'm like a teenager, and they're dealing with that. And they're also resulting in relying on punishment, expulsions, law enforcement, and all that. So I think, I don't want to go over it too much, but that's the whole point. Just no young people should feel alone. So having some type of component where you have people that are in classrooms, they are ensuring that young people are feeling love, compassion, and understanding and heard. And it's not a TA, it's something beyond that. It has to be some type of a credible student, credible messenger, but for school settings, for any youth, never feeling alone. Because once you feel alone, that's when you start, that's where your brain messes with you in different ways it's different for everybody.
Maybe having some kind of counselor or therapist in classrooms, especially one with lived experience, something like that can kind of talk to kids through their emotions, something like that. Does that sound like what you're talking about?
Yeah, I feel like I don't have the capacity to myself, but I feel like if I was going to classroom, I could definitely know how to do that shit, So it's just, Sorry about that.
I hear you, man. We're keeping it real. We're all adults here, I believe. I don't believe there's any. So, and for those of you in the audience, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. So do stick around for that, and we are going to make some space for your questions. And I know from my personal experience, I used to coach middle school football in inner cities. And a lot of those kids were coming from the kind of background that you're talking about. And for me, football was just a way to kind of spend time with them and talk to them about what they were going through. And I tried to make time to talk to each individual kid, regardless of their athletic ability, to kind of just let them know, I appreciate you being here, and I want to know what your experiences are. And so me as someone who grew up without a father also, I do think that does contribute. But if you do have someone in the schools, in the classrooms, who can kind of at least just show them a little bit of attention, a little bit of one-on-one time, and through the course of the day, not all those minutes in the classroom are used effectively. And so we can have maybe I'm just thinking on the fly here. We can have someone take 2 or 3 minutes per day with each child, talking about what their day's been like, what their week's been like. Are they having any emotions they want to talk about? Things like that. So thank you for bringing that up, Ken. I think that's really important. And just thinking about the child's experience from the very beginning. But Alex, I want to go back to you. When we were talking before this panel, you mentioned that you run the Center for Living and Learning, which provides opportunities for women in reentry, temporary housing. It's an amazing service that we need more of, and JCOD is continuing to try to build more of those facilities throughout the county. But you mentioned that something about how the services that you pay for are different than the services that you that you receive, like at a space that is provided by the county. Can you talk about the kind of differences and the challenges for women in reentry and when they're trying to get back on their feet, and how you kind of help with that?
Yes, so we've been around for 23 years, and we provide employment, case management, and now housing, specializing in those coming out of treatment and justice involvement. And when I was checking in with my staff to just see, what's really going on the ground and what inequities they saw, and my women community health workers shared that the sober livings and interim housing that you pay for, it's mainly sober livings, not the ones that are no cost funded through LASA or the county, the women's cost more. And I signed the checks, but I never realized that it's cheaper for the men sober living than it is for the women's. And of course, there's much less housing for women all around, whether it's just reentry homes coming straight from incarceration or coming bridge housing, coming out of treatment. There's just much less for women. And I just want to throw in, because I'm just still astounded with the lack of mental health and SUD and just health services for all of us, men.
Can you define SUD
women.
for those who may not know?
I'm sorry?
Can you define SUD for those who may not know?
Substance use disorder. So there is no treatment on demand. We know that there's more beds now that are funded through drug Medi-Cal. So back in the dinosaur era, there was some money for treatment, there were longer stays, and then there was no drug Medi-Cal. And when drug Medi-Cal came out, there were many more beds. But I can't get somebody in today without trying to do it through the back door. If you come to me today and say, I want treatment now, we know how important that is to get people in when they want to go, and it's not happening. And mental health is taking months to get in.
So we talk about discrimination that women face, and one thing that hasn't been mentioned today that I want to mention is misogynoir, which is the combination of sexism and racism that black women face. That it's just you're facing the double whammy of sexism and racism. But you're talking just isolating sexism. We know that women get paid less than men do for the same work, and now you're bringing to our attention that even sober living costs more for women than it does for men. So you're getting paid less. When you are able to have employment, even high-level employment, whatever level you're at, it's been shown that women earn less than men do for the same work. And now we're learning that also it costs more for services like that, and there are less of them available. So you talk about intersectionality, that's a prime example of it right there. So Bamby, I want to turn to you. You are a pioneer with the TransLatin Coalition. Can you talk about some of the gaps that you've helped to fill for the trans community with the work you do, and kind of just where we've come from, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago to where we are now? Obviously, we still have a long way to go, but you have to say that. It's true, but can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah. Hola. Did I turn it on? I did. Well, first I want to say that I have not been the one who has done the work. I think the work has been collectively done, right? And I do want to acknowledge some members of our team who are here. Byron, who is part of our policy department and leads our local initiatives. You can clap. You're like, clap. It's all good. Also, Maya, who's doing a internship with us in our policy department, and obviously one of our diamonds, Ms. Lorela Rain, who has been active in advocating for the needs and issues of our community at the local level. Yes, give it up. I do want to address a couple of things. I think that, one, all of us here in this room need to understand what is the concept of social justice, right? And who are those who are included into social justice realm, right? Because I think it's important for us to recognize that even ourselves sometimes are or could be marginalizers, right? And even sometimes we get to, discriminate other people who are part of our communities, who are part of sometimes the places where we work at. And I do want to talk specifically about, the life, both experiences and needs and issues and hopes and futures of trans people. And so I think it's important for all of us to recognize and understand that transgender and conforming intersex people we are at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to any type of social issues, social conditions that we have. We are one of the most poor. We continue to have challenges trying to access employment. We are discriminated while trying to access healthcare, for instance, housing, like all of those things, right? Like are compounded in our community simply because of who we are, simply because we are not afraid to be who we are. None of us, when we start our transition, think or dream that we're going to be outcast, right? That is why we want to transition, right? And so a lot of us contribute to all of that. And so I want for us to really understand the importance of looking at each other through our humanity, right? And to really understand that if we are doing this kind of work, and if we really do believe in social justice, right? Social justice should not be for just some of us or our homies or our, the people that look like us or, the people who, access our services, right? Like I think social justice should be for all of us. And I do want to invite you to also support an effort that we have going on at the TransLatin Coalition. We are working with the different Board of Supervisors offices to institute a trans wellness and equity care initiative, which we're asking $7 million to the county to invest in trans-led organizations and and really to support services for trans people here in LA County. And we're also going to be doing that similar work in the city, asking them for $3 million, which is a total of $10 million to really support and uplift the livelihood of transgender and conforming and intersex people who live here in Los Angeles. But we need all of your support, right? And so, again, it's part of this social justice work that needs to happen. And really understanding, if we understand the budgets of the city and the county, like $3 million and $7 million es como quitarle un pelo a un gato, right? Like, it really is nothing. So I want to invite you to that. But, the TransLatin Coalition really is the biggest trans-led organization that is based here in Los Angeles, and we have built a multitude of services specifically to uplift the livelihood of transgender and conforming intersex people. And I do have the privilege to be the president and the CEO of the TransLatin Coalition. And so I want to also invite you. I know that a lot of us have reservations and we have internalized fears, right? But I want to invite you, come and visit us. We are in K-Town. We have, there's 63 of us working at that organization, all who are transgender and conforming, intersex, cis, all of us are working in community together to really support and better the conditions, the livelihood conditions of our community. I also want to extend an invitation. We have, we're celebrating our 15th anniversary. And so estamos celebrando nuestra quinceañera. And and we're going to have a fashion show. Every year we have a fashion show. So if you want to know what community looks like, right? Like an empowering trans, gender non-conforming, who we're highlighting as high fashion models and all of that, come check us out. Going to be November 16. Check out garras.org for information. So the fashion show is called Garras, como las garras que se ponen.
Thank you, Bamby. As someone, as a cis straight dude, I consider myself someone who strives for allyship, and I think you don't have to fully understand something in order to just understand that there's people who are just trying to live their lives. And so that's the basic principle for me. And so if you're someone who, oh, I don't understand why what trans means, why someone is trans, it doesn't matter. They're just people, just like the rest of us, who have different experiences and different perspectives, who are just trying to live their lives, and it doesn't affect you. They're not hurting you. So I don't understand all the hate that the trans community gets, and I just want to encourage others to just have an open mind and have a conversation with someone from that community, and you'll see that they're just people just like the rest of us.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Just around the hate? I think my analogy is that we are hated because we are truthful, and I think we as a society have been hiding to really truthful to who we are, and because we get to live our truth despite of everything that we have to experience, including violence every single day, right? Like we get to live our truth despite of, and that's why people hate us.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. You see a lot of people who end up being anti-gay, they have tendencies, the closeted tendencies that they want to hide from everybody. A lot of people who are anti this, they have a secret desire to be that, and they don't have the courage. So I think there's a lot of truth in that. But before we do get to our Q&A session, I do want to get to you, James, and talk about your experience as a vet. And there's always conversations about what we do for our vets, and our vets getting the support they need and the resources they need when they come home. But as someone who is both, and we're talking about intersectionality, who is both a vet and justice impacted, what is that space like for you, and what's the most glaring thing for you that can improve to help others at that intersectionality?
That's a good question. And for me, and I'll speak on my own personal experiences, when I was discharged with a bad conduct discharge, I just felt my whole life was over. Being homeless is not easy. I lived in a Salvation Army box, one of those old clothing boxes that you would find behind a department store. When it was raining, that's where I would stay if I wasn't, sleeping on a couch or, staying with some friends, There was nothing available for somebody who was discharged with a less than honorable discharge. If you got an honorable discharge, then, the whole world is laid out at your feet. But that was then. And, it took me to 30 years of my incarceration experience to finally wake up and realize that if I wanted something, I had to stop blaming others because I wasn't getting it. So when I was released on April 30th, 2019, after serving 28 years, that's what I did. I started going to school, and I started learning. I started educating myself. I started asking questions, and I started asking for help. Today, I actually work. I actually got hired on last Friday with Military Veteran Affairs as a veteran service officer.
Congratulations.
I graduate this December from USC with my Master's of Social Work. And just yesterday, I was accepted into the Doctorate of Social Work program at USC. So I used to be one of the ones when I was inside that hated everybody. I was radicalized from the moment I began to defend myself as a young boy from the trauma that I experienced because I didn't know what was happening. And I used to blame myself for all the things that was happening to me until I finally realized, why am I blaming myself? I had no control over it. So I think a lot of times, particularly working as a program manager before I got hired with the Military Veteran Affairs, working with people who are trying to reintegrate back into society, there's there's their intersectionality that they're still trying to deal with. And working with justice-involved veterans is no different. When you go to combat, you come back. Some people might look at you and treat you as though you're different. Because when you come back, you surely feel different. Just like when you're in prison, you're a gang member. That was another part of my intersection. You know, I used to run with the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang. I know, right? And I'm not proud of that, but that's a part of my life. And it's because of those experiences that's allowed me to actually be the president of Unchained Scholars at USC, which is a program that basically brings awareness about the stigmatizing consequences that follow all men and women who come out of prison. And why do we still allow that to happen as a society? You know, you talk about one people, talk about one race of people in a society. That's what it should be. It should be about unification, not division. But it happens all the time. In my track at USC, in the adult mental health and wellness track, that's what I specialize in. I try to bring that awareness into the community. I actually walk the streets of Skid Row because that's where I ended up being housed when I first got out. They thrust a white guy on Skid Row to live in a transitional housing program for 6 months. I wasn't aware of that. You talk about survival. I lived in the Weingard. You know, that's downtown Skid Row. I've never been there. So I had to learn how to survive. So what did I do? I started going out in the community. And by doing that, then I went to the Midnight Mission and asked them to hire me. So while I was going to LA City College, I actually got hired by the Midnight Mission as a drug and alcohol counselor. And I started learning about people. I started learning about systems of people that other people just look at and disregard simply because they appear different. And what I realized is that they're just like me. So in my day, in my life, and in my track, I just live by a simple motto. I try to continue elevating myself so that I have the ability to reach back and lift others. You know, I lived a very traumatic life, and I know that the people I help also have gone through some traumatic experiences. But it's because of that is why I don't ever give up. Because of that is why I'm here right now. And it's because of that of why I will continue to do what I'm doing, whether you're a veteran or not.
Give it up for that. I just want to point out something to all of you in the audience. This man said he was in an Aryan gang, and now he's sitting next to a black Jewish guy talking about unity. How things can change, right? So I do want to leave some space for your questions or comments. I know you may have heard some things today that that spoke to you, or you have a question for one of the panelists, and if not, it's totally okay. If you do have a question, the gentleman here is going to walk around with the microphone. So let's go to the young lady here in the glasses.
Well, I'm not a young lady. I'm 80 years old, and I'm so happy to be here for Miss Bamby. I've heard so much talk and so much crap in my life because we've been rejected so many years. And from this day, we rejected. Like we rejected in the more. We go to cold cases. Our cases never be solved. There's a young lady that died on Sunday. They found her on Tuesday, Miss Emily, God bless her. And I got to see it through my window, how they were just, she's going right back to cold case. Because they don't never, we've been rejected, so many years. I've been rejected I started in 1968.
Just to clarify, when you say you're talking about the trans community, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am talking about. And you over there, gentlemen, I'm to me, it's all talk. You can say what you want to say, but when you brought that other extra, you know, Donald Trump's talking the same talk too. I keep it real. I've always kept it real, and I'm going to die fighting for my community, because our community are the last one to tell in the end. She has fought. She has done so much for our community, and from this day, I command that lady, and I respect that lady. I don't know you, and I'm going to keep it real. Whatever you got it, you said up there, it's just all talk. You, young man, I love your talk, and you miss. But you.
So hold on a second. I want to respond to that.
No, I keep it real. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and be fake.
I'm not asking
you know,
you.
I do took that, like, you know, I understand that he's doing something good now. I do respect that you fought for our country. Also, you know, it's just, I hear that from the politics. When I go to those politics up there to fight for us, to bring us fun, we never get it. From this day, we have not got what we need.
Hold on, y'all, hold on. So let me respond to that. Thank you for the question.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And so I think we're, as JCOD, as members of JCOD, we talk about second chances. We work towards giving people second chances. And third and fourth and beyond. So you may not know this gentleman and he doesn't know you. I don't know him very well myself, but why not have a conversation with him? I'm sure he'd be willing to have a conversation with you. And so this man has been doing work. He has some things he's done in his past he's not proud of, just as a lot of people on this stage do. So I just don't think it's worth, in this space where we all are collectively trying to come together to find solutions, to attack each other without having a further conversation with each other.
I do want to say something, though. I think there's a couple of things that we really need to understand, right? Like, I think you didn't hear what she said, that a young girl was found dead.
I did hear that.
And she saw that, right? And so I think, again, right, like, we need to really understand, like, how we see each other, right? And how, like, what is the concept of social justice, right? And people didn't hear that. And what I heard was people yelling, take the mic, where's the question? But you're not seeing that there's pain, right? That there's pain that is speaking. And so we really need to find a different formula, because, you know, we're not seeing, and we're not understanding specifically, right, like the violence that trans people, particularly the trans women of color, experience every single day. Every single day. This year alone, there has been almost 55 murders of trans women. And so around the world, there's almost 500 trans people who are killed, right? So more than one of us are being extinct every single day. And so, you know, we're not seeing those things. And, you know, the fact that she's saying, like, I hear that all the time, right? Like, we hear that from politicians, we hear that from people, and every day, right? That they always say, yes, I support you, but when it comes down to it, you turn your back on us. And so, again, I just want for us to really understand the gravity of the situation, and really who we are as people and what our experience is. And if you don't see that commonality and the intersections that we all experience, right, then social justice is just a myth. It's just something that we're saying de los labios para afuera, right? Like, we're not really taking it into heart.
And if I may, that's what we're here to understand, right? And that's why we want to have a conversation with all of these different perspectives on the stage, yourself included, and give a voice to you and your community.
But we can justify. Like I don't think we need to justify.
Justify.
Like
what are we trying to justify?
yeah, like we cannot justify when someone is speaking truth to power. We cannot try to silence them, right? Like I think it's important for us to understand each other, but we should
hear
not
you.
silence one another.
I hear you, and we're not. I don't think anyone here is trying to silence anybody. And so what I'm this, if I may. If hold on a second, we'll get the mic to you. We'll get the mic to you. And do we have another hand up with a question? So all I'm saying is we acknowledge the pain that she's talking about. I personally acknowledge it. I'm just saying that I don't think there needs to be a comment about I don't like you or kind of that kind of. You said you didn't like his talk. You didn't like his talk.
There's so many people that talk like that. Talk is cheap. I didn't say it like that. I didn't disrespect this man at all.
That,
If I did, I apologize to you if you took it that way. But I still want to say, we're talking loud. And do we matter?
absolutely,
Do we matter?
of course.
We don't.
And I hear you. I hear you, and I hear I don't.
Didn't mean it to come out like that, but that's how it came out. Okay?
All right, absolutely. See, that's why we have a conversation. We flush things out. You know what I mean? And you do matter. Who's next?
Right here. Ooh, so loud.
Where you at? I don't
I'm
see
over
you.
here.
Oh, there you go.
My name is Ashley, and I just wanted to point out something that, like, just highlight what Kent was talking about. As a person who's worked in homeless services and childhood education for almost a decade in each, I think it's really important that, and as a prevention person, like in housing, I think to Kent's point, having just highlighting the prevention of that in early childcare, in the early days, in elementary school, in middle school, having a program to walk alongside of folks. That's preventative, right? Like we often focus on what happens after someone is incarcerated. How do we support them when they're released? And I think we need to change some of our lenses to look at how do we support folks before they even get there. And that's a part of that school to prison pipeline that we always talk about, right? So how can we find ways to support measures to vote for, just different things and ways to support children in their early childhood days, especially kids in the inner city.
Thank you for that. And Alex, you want to jump in?
Yes, because just connecting with the childhood experience and the impact on our children. So I fully support all of this. But also when the focus is on us and us getting help through children's services and whatever reentry program, if our children aren't helped, they're going to follow right behind us. And as a mother with two, one taken away with children's services numerous times, it was never, ever broached to me about getting help from my daughter. It was just all about me getting help, and we paid the price. And I know that now, but I didn't know that 22 years ago. And so she suffered for many, many years and continues. She's successful now in society's eyes, but that impact of being born to a mom on drugs and never getting any help at school, therapy, and never, ever broached to me, let's get her help too. And so I just think that we're really, unless we're treating the whole family, we're going to keep paying the price. Thank you.
So I'm getting the rap symbol. Do we have anybody else that wants to ask a question? And how hard is that rap, Gina? Is it super hard? Okay. Okay, yeah, you have to go? All right, thank you so much, Bamby. I know you have to go. Thank you so much. It's great having a conversation with you, and thank you for joining us. So let's get to one more question.
Yes.
Isaac here.
I had a comment and actually piggyback on this young lady right here and also Alex. So like full wraparound services for the entire family, right? So I come from a community that's plagued by gang violence and economic displacement. The school to prison pipeline, I used to think I was a victim of it. Now I believe I'm a survivor because I did graduate from East LA College with multiple degrees. I have a sociology track, and in my studies, like again, reflecting on my life while I was in prison, I would ask myself what went wrong. I had two older brothers that were facing life sentences. My whole family was focused on them, marriages, all these different intersectionalities, right? And while I was in prison, I couldn't help but think about my parents. My grandmother was an immigrant. My father was a gang member. My mother an alcoholic, addiction. And what support systems that they have. So even if we help the child at school and they're there, they're still going, the school could become a safe haven, right? But when they leave school, now they're going back to their reality. I work at Homeboy Industries as a program manager for JCOD RICMS. And so our trainees too, it's a safe haven. But again, once our doors close, they're going to their realities, and as far as trauma here in this country, 1 in 3 individuals experience severe trauma. So no matter what background you come from, trauma does not discriminate, like addiction, even with fentanyl overdoses, there's been above 1,000% within the past 2 years. So those are things that we really got to look at. And it's not just one thing. You guys got to keep in mind, there's a 200-year gap. And we're barely catching up to it. So having these conversations and these spaces and including everyone and everybody also sharing the boat, but also being in mind, keep it at a respectful level. Because again, there is a lot of trauma and trauma can surface. And when it does, hurt people and it could get very dangerous. Just be mindful of each other and never forget that there is power in collective unity. Thank you. Thank you.
And so we got to wrap. James, I just want to give you a second if you want to respond to anything.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's views and everybody's opinions, and I respect everybody's views and opinions. And I had a crazy past. I'll be the first to admit, but I'm not a social hater. I am a social worker, and I believe in the collectiveness of unity and hearts coming together as one. And so people can say what they want to say, and that's okay, because everybody is allowed to have a voice. Because why? Together we thrive.
I like how you just wrapped up the panel for me with the slogan of the whole event here. Thank you so much for attending this panel and for your participation and your attention. And please continue to follow us on social media at LACJCOD, and we'll see you at the rest of the events today. Thank you.